The Fed is going to look at 1 month and just kind of take it in context of what we've seen recently. Yeah, this month, these are not great numbers. It's a disappointment. I certainly looked at that unemployment rate. And yet we have seen solid gains. This does not change
Yep.
the story. And honestly, at the Fed and a lot of places, all eyes are still on the CPI and the inflation prints. So we still have an economy that's really moving and a labor market that's still working well, although not in the way that we've
Right.
seen last year where it was still just going really strong.
I know they're going to be day dependent, but I know that everybody listening across the nation and watching on YouTube wants to know from Claudia Sahm the recession metric. Now, you haven't had time to go out state by state and readjust your claim rule, but we've had a number of people this morning suggesting part of America is in recession. Is that true?
No, that's not true. The recession indicator that I put together, this is, it's calibrated. It's, looking at the national recessions that we've seen. There are times where we have disruptions at, local levels. Industry bases can be really important in a area like California with tech. And so you can see states or localities move in one way that the rest of the economy isn't. It's important to look at increases in unemployment rate. These are not good, and
Right.
yet we shouldn't think of that as a recession.
From the headline perspective, I think what's jumping out for a lot of people just looking at various reporting here is that headline unemployment rate of 3.9%. And there's an argument to be made that the Fed would, in fact, doesn't mind seeing that number go up because that may give them some maybe more ammunition to cut rates. How do you think about that argument?
Well, first, it's not a flashing red number. The recession indicator, the Sahm Rule, takes the 3-month average. I mean, this is, conceptually, we should do this on any data release. And right now, that Sahm Rule is up 26 basis points and the trigger is 50.
Yep.
Right. So we are still far away from, red alert territory. You never want to see it go up. We saw some times last year where it did, and then it got revised away. So this is not good news, but this is not just, hair on fire kind of news. And it shouldn't change anything the Fed is thinking today.
One of the
And
things
because that's just how they look at the data.
See,
Right.
let me translate that for you out on YouTube live chat. Dr. Sahm just said Tom Keene was wrong. Okay,
Just
continue.
relax. Hey, how about these revisions here to the prior month? I mean, it's almost a 40% revision downward in that headline change in non-farm payrolls. Did their spreadsheets just not work last month?
No, the Bureau of Labor Statistics knows what they're doing. It's hard. We have an over $25 trillion economy. We have hundreds of millions of people working. It's really tough to get a good read. And when you think about it, we get that first read on the labor market like within weeks of the Bureau of Labor Statistics doing those surveys. So we're going to have noise. These are not, I mean, again, downward revisions, taking away a big number, that's not good, right? We'd like to see, big numbers going all the way forward. And yet it's not surprising. Measurement has been very hard
Right.
throughout this whole cycle. And frankly, we get revisions like this. This is not unusual.
On a decile basis, or I'll let you go, you can divide by fifths or tenths. A decile, folks, is 10% of the people out there, is the way I'm using this here. Are we lumpy and polarized in our labor economy, Claudia? Or can you say it's one America and you can aggregate, as Alan Meltzer lectured me years ago?
It really depends what you're looking at. I will say this labor market has worked for more of the deciles than usual. The recovery has been, and the wage gains that have been made, there's a lot of it at the bottom.
Yeah.
Now, they were starting from a very low place, so that's not necessarily saying a lot, but this has been a more quote unquote inclusive recovery than we have seen in a very, very long time. And the labor market is still in a very good place for low wage workers, women, immigrants, people in marginalized groups. I mean, you name it, this has been a very inclusive. There's a lot of wins to go around. Now, if you ask people, they may not be feeling the wins.
Right.
And you ask businesses, they may not be feeling the wins. This has been very disruptive. This has been a real slog.
Paul, I'm looking here, and it's unfair to you and Claudia, but I got the Bloomberg terminal in front of me doing fancy mathematics.
Nice.
And the moving averages to Dr. Sahm, folks, is correct. I use 3 moving averages. I'm not going to go into the math of it. And they're not gloomy down, the world's coming to an end. the operative word is they're flat.
Flattish.
We're just moving along on a summed moving average basis, as Claudia Sahm nailed there at 831.
Claudia, we also saw the labor force participation rate kind of come in at 62.5%, kind of steady. Give us context for that number.
That number is so important. Like, that's the piece of coming out of the big disruptions. I mean, you think 4 years ago, we had millions of people leaving the labor market because of the pandemic, because of care responsibilities. I mean, that was so disruptive. And we have not, on the population as a whole, gotten back to where we were 4 years ago. And yet we've made a lot of progress. Prime age people in their prime working years, they're back. We've made a lot of really turning the corner. Last year on the recovery was coming from more workers. We solved a labor shortage with more labor and not fewer customers. The Fed can only do the second one, and we got workers back. So that's one that's really important, and we have to keep building on those gains, and we absolutely have to keep them. So steady as she goes there. That's very important, and the Fed is very much watching that number.
We got the luxury here. We can do this out of Michigan with Claudia Sahm. It's International Women's Day. Some people talk, others do. And Claudia Sahm is one of those that has not talked but done. And also someone named Betsy Stevenson as well at Michigan. Claudia, review the boom that we saw in women's employment, I'll say 30 years ago, and the changes now and how that folds into Paul's good question on labor participation. What's the women dynamic that we've seen pre-pandemic into this awful pandemic and now out of it?
We saw gains for women before the pandemic. I mean, remember, that was a really good expansion. We were in a good place, and COVID took a lot away from us. And what we've seen as we've come into this recovery, particularly the past few years, we're back on track. Right. And we are at a point last year, women's employment, women in their prime working years hit all-time highs. Right. This has been a generations long progress to give women the opportunity, those who want to work. And we're seeing it. And it's really important. There were some thin silver linings that came out of COVID. It's very clear from research that the work from home technology has helped open up flexibility for women to be working. We have an economy with we're getting more and more part-time jobs. People with caregiving responsibilities often need flexibility. They're getting it. Wages, I mean, you name it. We're making progress. It's been slow, right? This shouldn't be a 2023 story, but we are making progress, and that's a real testament to an economy that is working.